Yo, you're in the studio with Leon Switch, and today I thought we could cover making some mid-range basses with just Ableton stock plugins. It's something that I've had a few questions about over time and a few comments about, and also something I wasn't really sure whether the results would be usable or would be as good as what I get when I use my contact made ones. So yeah, I think it turned out quite successfully. All of the basses that you're hearing in the tune that's playing in the background right now were made using this technique in this video right now. So I think it turned out alright. So anyway, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, definitely go check out the membership section, and yeah, definitely thanks for your support. Definitely much love, and let's crack on with the video. Okay, so I've launched Ableton, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to grab the wavetable synth, and we're going to put that on the first MIDI channel that's available there, and then we're going to take the oscillator so it becomes a saw wave, and we're going to do the same with oscillator 2. We're going to basically turn that on, and we're going to take it up so it's a saw wave, and then we're going to detune the 2. So I'm going to go -19 with the oscillator 2, and then I'm going to go to oscillator 1 and go -19, and go +19 with oscillator 1. So we should now have a Reese sort of style noise. I've dropped the volume on it because they do, these stock plugins do come up super loud. So if I play low, it's like a proper old school drum and bass sort of style Reese, you know. Nice, but we can hear that the envelope here, the amplifier envelope, is just wrong. It's not right for the sound. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring the sustain all the way up, so the volume of the note will just stay consistent now for as long as we hold the key, and we're going to take off this release because we don't want any release. I don't want it off, so it's going to click. I want it just a little touch, so that we get that smooth note off. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to knock this whole thing down an octave, so -12, and we're going to go to oscillator 2 and do the same, so -12 semitones. Nice, and then we're going to turn on the unison. So we're going to come to classic, and we're going to leave the voices at 3, and you can hear that that's just made it into a Reese, like a proper Reese. And it is super loud, so we'll bring the volume down on it. Where's that? It's here. And we're going to bring this volume back up to 0, and we're looking to get this -12, -6 sort of area, which we're okay. Sweet. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a saturator. So if we come to the audio effects and we come to the distortion or drive and color, sorry, and we're going to grab a saturator, and once again I'm going to turn the volume down on the output of the saturator, and I'm going to then turn the saturation up so we can sort of counterbalance volume wise. And you can hear with the more drive we give it, the more gritty it becomes, but also it kind of changes the overall tonality and the shape of the noise, because we've got this sort of movement with the Reese, with the detuning. We've got this waver, as it was. We've now, with the distortion, this distortion kind of impacts that waver and sort of grabs hold of that waver and makes it sound different. So I'm quite happy with the drive around there. I might bring the volume down a touch more because it's super loud in my headphones. Let's have a look. Yeah, so the level's quite good there. So for a Reese, just a straight Reese, I'm quite happy there. So I'm going to leave the Reese there. I'm now going to just record that in. So I'm going to come to the other page here, and I'm now going to just move these channels around. So this is now going to become channel 1 because this is our first Reese, you know, our clean Reese. And then channel 2 is now going to become our recorded Reese, which is going to be our WT, which is our wavetable _ Reese -01. And sorry if I spell that correctly, just the 1 S, 2 E's. Brilliant. So we drag this out a little bit so we can see what they're saying. So we can now see that we're going to record in a long note of this wavetable Reese. So let's go a little bit longer than that. There we go. Insert a MIDI clip. Where are we? Again. So 19, and then right click, insert a MIDI clip. There we go. I'll put one here. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to F1 down the bottom here, which is our note there. We're going to change the quantize to make my life a bit easier, and then we're just going to draw a long note of this in. There we go. And now we're basically just going to record this into this second channel. I'm going to hit record here. I'm going to hit record here. I'm going to take the loop off so that it doesn't loop. And we're just going to let it record. Sorry, I apologize about that. I need to, first things first, set it to resample. There we go. Let's try that again. And you can see there now that it's recording that reese. There we go. So what we'll do now is we will now grab another sampler. So if we go to the instruments here and we'll grab a sampler and we will put this onto the MIDI channel and we'll bring the MIDI channel up so that we're going to run in an order here. So this is now going to be the twisted reese -01, and we'll bring that out so we can read titles a bit more. There we go. And what we need to do now is we need to drag this reese into the audio of the reese into the sampler, and we can hear that that's now a proper reese, you know, like a proper drum and bass or dubstep style reese. So the first thing we'll do is we'll turn on the snap so that our start point is always going to fall on 0 crossing points, and then we're going to turn on the interpolation. So if I play an octave higher, it's going to try and retain the quality, and the same if I go lower. I mean, it's too low, so it's not going to sound there, but we can kind of get to there, and it's not so bad. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come to the filter global page. We're going to turn off the R, and we're going to change this to 1 because we only want one note to play at once, and we're going to turn on the distortion, more distortion, and we're going to turn up the distortion. Let's come to this page so we can see where we're at with the level. We can give it some more drive. In fact, what we'll do is we'll grab another saturator. That'll be our best bet. So let's grab a saturator on here and let's turn up the saturation. So we're just fattening up that reese some more, you know, we're adding in more harmonics in general, and we're just fattening up the reese. We don't want it so it's crazy distorted, but this is where your sort of creative choices come into play, because this is like where you stop with the distortion is where you stop with the distortion, you know, where I stop with the distortion is where I stop with distortion. So this is, this is where things are really personal with sound design, and that's what I love about the whole thing, you know. No one will ever make the same sounds as me because they're my choices, you know, and I wouldn't expect anybody to want to make the same noises as me, you know. It's like you're gonna make your own sound, and there's something so cool about that, so cool about that. So let's move on. So okay, so we've got saturation, we've got a solid reese. Nice. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab an EQ8, and this is where we can now start to twist things about a little bit. And what we're going to do is turn off band 4, and we're going to change band 1 so that it's a bell the same as the others. So I'm going to turn the gain down on the EQ3 now, and I'm now going to boost the volume on these individual notes. So point 1 is going to be full gain and the EQ all the way down. Point 2 is going to be all the gain, or like the no gain, so it all the way down like a notch, and the Q all the way down, so it's the widest possible notch as it was. And then the number 3, we're going to gain all the way up, so it's another peak, and we're going to turn the Q all the way down, so it's like a maximum sort of peak. Now if I play this, we're on -11 dB, so it shouldn't be crazy loud in theory. There we go, and you can hear that that's just cut that middle out. This is just adding some of that sort of region there, and this is adding just, it's crazy, you know. I mean, it's quite a nice sound, but it is crazy. So what we're going to do now is we're now going to keep it on the audio effects. We're going to come to the search bar at the top here, and we're going to type LFO, and we're going to go to modulators, and then we're going to grab the LFO, and we're going to put it after the EQ3, the EQ8, sorry. And what I am going to do is I'm just going to double click on this box so that we can get everything on the page here a bit easier. And we're going to duplicate this LFO twice. So we've now got 3 LFOs, 1 for each of these nodes here. So we're going to map the first one to the to node 1, and we're going to map it to the frequency. And then we're going to map number 2 to number 2, and that's also going to be mapped to the frequency. And then we're going to map number 3 to number 3, and that's also going to be mapped to the frequency. So as you can see now, it's going quite crazy, you know, but we've got movement happening now. And if I'm to now press a key, we've gone from being a straight Reese into something new now. Something a bit more interesting. I mean, at the moment it's very resonancy. I'm not a massive fan of how it's sounding. We haven't tweaked it, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the adaptive cue, and we're now going to try it again. And the difference that that's made. There's actually something really nice about that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to time up these LFOs to the tempo. So we're going to click the sync button there, and we're now going to adjust the times. And the idea with this is that if once you start once you get your twisted Reese and it's got all the movement across it, when you're writing your tune, chances are that at some point you're going to want to hold a longer note. That's how I've worked with a few things. Sometimes I'll hold a slightly longer note and it will just have that movement across of it, but it will also semi be in time with the tempo, which is super cool, because then you can start to play with stuff, you know. Okay, so that's crazy loud. So one of the things that we really need to do now is drop the gain here some more, and we also need to get some gain control here. So I'm going to grab another saturator, I'm going to bring that to the very end here, and I'm going to drop the output. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a compressor, and we're going to compress it quite hard. So if I go to dynamics and I grab a compressor, I'm going to put that after this saturator here. I'm going to turn off any side chains that we've got on, and we've now should have a really, with the threshold down here and the ratio all the way up, we should have a quite strong sort of compression. And what we're looking at here is we're looking for the level. We want the level to just be a little bit more sort of keeping it together. I might turn the volume up here a little touch now. So we're kind of pushing into that compressor harder. I'm going to drop the threshold some more. So we've got a little bit more control now over the overall sound, you know, over the volume of the overall sound, which is super cool. So now let's start to tweak these LFOs and the EQ here. So I'm gonna click on band 2, and we can now adjust the Q on band 2 as well as adjust the timings on these LFOs. So the first thing I do is literally just randomize where they are. I'm not even listening to it right this second. Which is quite cool, but as you can see at the top here, where we've assigned the different bands to the LFOs, we've now got amounts. So the modulation amount, how much of this LFO is going to be affecting the frequency band. So what we can do is we can start to drop these a little bit, and we'll start to tame it just a little touch. And we can also invert. We can invert the LFOs here. So if I drop the level all the way to 0 here on this band 2 and take it all the way up to 100, then we've now inverted. So where it was going up before, it's now going down. And we could do the same thing for this number 3. So we could bring this down, bring that up to 100, bring this down to 0. This is good. We're going to adjust this now. We're going to bring this down so that it's not going quite so crazy. And let's play with this Q on this band 2 now. And we can also have a look at the scale here. And we can bring up the volume, so we're driving it a little bit harder. You can hear things start to get too crunchy the more gain we give it. Could even bring the scale down again. So let's play some more with these, with the timings. And unfortunately, there's no sort of quick process to this. I mean, sometimes you'll sit it and you'll turn it on and it will just work and everything will just fall into place. And other times you'll be here for an hour just adjusting it until you try and get something that sounds right. But we won't spend too long on that. We'll just get a rough thing going and then we'll move on. So we can start to adjust some more of these. And you can see by bringing down this, bringing down the amount of modulation, we're not quite going up into the into the high register of the frequency. So we're not getting that sort of spikiness with it some more. It should become a little bit smoother. Let's try slowing this one down. And we can also adjust these phases, so whereabouts in the LFO is it starting from. And these can drastically change the shapes, you know. Nice. So we'll go with that for the second. It's not my favorite one we've ever made, of course, but it is what it is, you know. And for the sake of this experiment, or for the sake of this example, then it will work fine. So we've just basically set up this next channel, and for this we will rename it and we will call it what do we call it? Twisted Reese 1. So we'll go post twist Reese -01. And we know then that this is post the twist, you know, this is the twisted Reese. And with this, we will just draw another note in. So I'm going to copy this one. And I'm basically just going to sort of put this back onto C3. There we go. So now when I solo this and I hit record on here, we can now record this whole twisted thing into the next channel down. And the outcome massively depends on what your input is. So what your original Reese sounds like has such a massive impact on the overall sound, as I'll show you in a second. So right, so let's now grab a sampler. Sorry, there we go. Let's grab another sampler. Here we go, and then we can now drag this audio now into the sampler, and we've now got that processed twisted Reese now in that sampler. So we can now play that across the keys. If I unsolo that, there we go. And I'll turn the snap on. I'm going to turn the interpolation to best. I'm also going to turn on the glide, and I'm also going to turn on the distortion for the filter. And I'm even going to grab some, funnily enough, I'm going to grab some drive, some saturation. Nice. I'm going to turn off the R there, and then we're going to come back to this page for a second, just check the volume. Nice. And we're going to grab a little bit of a reverb on there. Hear the seagulls in the background again. Okay, so let's turn the size up to full. We can turn the decay, we'll leave the decay as it is. There we go, stereo all the way up, and then we will just drop the dry wet a touch. Nice, nice. All of a sudden it comes alive, you know, something that at the start we weren't so sure about. You know, it's an okay noise, it's not the best noise, rah rah rah, and then all of a sudden you start to play it across the keys, especially with that glide. Nice. And I haven't even moved the start point yet. That's just playing it completely raw. So let's zoom in here. In fact, we could even give it some more volume here. Sick, like sick. Like, that's so cool, so cool. I'll drop it a little bit there. And with that touch of reverb, that just gives it just something. It might be a little bit too much reverb. I might even put the low diffusion and just bring that out a little bit, so we're just losing that bottom end, that boxiness in the reverb. And with having it timed up to the tempo, you can then afford to hold those notes for a bit longer, and you've got that interesting movement. So let's try it again. So let's now grab, now that we've got all the channels set up, and the other good thing, sorry about this setup, is that you can now go back to anywhere in the chain that you were at before, and you're already set up with all the channels there ready now. So you can now save this arrangement off, and you've now got your bass twisting arrangement sorted, ready to go. So what we could do is we could group these. There we go. And we can go Control R, and we'll call it Twisted. If I can spell. Twisted Mid -01. Me thumping on my keyboard. I can even hear it in the headphones. Sweet. So what we can do now is we can now basically just copy these out of here into a new group. So we could duplicate this group, Control D. There we go. And we can now mute this group off, and we've now got a fresh start with the next group. So we can now, if I solo this, sorry, I don't mean to solo that. Bloody seagulls, man. So we can now, let's try changing these oscillators now to a square wave, and let's see what that's saying. Wow, they're all highlighted, so I've managed to completely just blow my eardrums out there. There we go. Drop the volume on that. Nice. So if we come back to this page now, we know that the next one, so we can delete this off now. But we can now hit record on here, solo on here, and we're now going to basically resample this into this channel, the same as we did before. And we've then got like another Reese to put into the system. And you can make these notes as long or as short as you like. I just like the idea of having sort of 30 seconds or just under 30 seconds, so that if I play really high on the keyboard, just to get like a sort of style of noise, then I've still got lots of the sample left, you know. And also if the sample's quite long, then there's more chance of it just morphing over time and evolving over time. So now let's go to the next one. So this is our Twisted Reese twister, as it was. So if we come to here and we now replace this Reese with the one we just recorded, and we specify, so we come to this next channel down here, Twisted Reese, and we now turn it on, and we solo it, we've now got the new Reese in the machine. So it's now got the LFOs on it ready for adjusting. So I can now close this back up, and we've now got the same setup as what we had before. Nice. So we can adjust a few of these. Adjust the phase on a few. We could even invert the LFO again. Nice. Let's just check the level on that. So we could come up a little bit with the volume or with the drive. A little bit too distorted for my liking there, so we'll come to the compressor. We'll use the output from the compressor. Nice. So let's come back to our previous page, and we know that we've got to go to the post Reese. So we're going to record that in now. So everything's set up, ready to go. So we just hit the record button on here, hit record, and just record that whole note in again. Pretty cool, pretty cool. There we go. Okay, so we can now unsolo this, and we can now basically move on to this very last channel here, where we just replace that Reese with the new one, and we solo this channel, and we've now got the reverb and the drive that we had on the last Reese, but we can now play it across the keys. Nice. So if we go back to the very first Reese now, so if I turn that back on, that first group, and I come to the very last channel in that, the post twist Reese. Go on. That's sick. So that one's really cool, and then that was the saw wave, and this is the square wave version. We can adjust this start point. A little bit clicky, so we can give it some attack, just a touch. And we could even just make sure that we can only play one note at once. Let's see what the pitch bend is saying. Okay, so we could put this to 12, and we can now and you get the idea, you know. So we've just created two completely different twisted Reeses, like mid-range basses, you know. And like every time you move that start point, you've got a new bass hit, you know. You've got a new sound, but it's still from that same sound, so that it will work together, you know. You can that noise will totally work alongside that noise, which will totally work alongside sick. And you can see how you can then get groups of basses, and there's nothing saying back that we can't go back with this, you know, and like to where we've twisted it. Where was the twisted version? Sorry, it was here, wasn't it? Yes. There's nothing saying you can't come back to here now and adjust the settings again, you know, and then go through the same process again with the same resto. And that way then you've got like double the amount of hits, because you've got 30 seconds, just under 30 seconds of this Reese, which is just evolving over time, and then 30 seconds of the same Reese, which is evolving over time differently. So you can use all of those hits together in the same tune, and they're guaranteed just to work cool, like really cool. Definitely. And I'm not saying you're going to get 100 hits out of each Reese, especially not with this method, but the contact method for me works better. I get on better with that, but I've been using that method for years, so I kind of know it backwards. It's an easier process to set up. It doesn't seem so fiddly. But sometimes I'll spend hours on that. The same as with this, you know, where you're just not getting a result, just like bang my head against the wall, rah, and then all of a sudden those 3 settings just worked, and it then had that bit more movement, or that, you know, it just worked. So it's just playing. That's all you can do with this, is just keep playing, keep adjusting. Try a different like chord Reese, you know, keep adjusting. A little bit less saturation, a little bit more saturation, you know, like play with your effects as well, like stick a flanger on it, stick a phaser on it. Like these things can all really help. Stick a filter on it. I mean, we could even, here we go, let's go back to this one here, and let's come to the filter section here. Let's grab a notch filter on here, and then let's grab another LFO. So we're on effects, yeah, audio effects. Let's go LFO, modulators. We'll grab an LFO out. We'll put it onto the channel, and then we'll map it to the filter, to the frequency. Sorry, filter frequency. And we've now got even more movement happening real time. There we go. We can time it up. Like, super cool. We can change the slope. Nice, like RAM, like old school RAM days. I mean, for me personally, I'm not as keen on using the LFO at this stage. I mean, I know you can use the built-in LFO here, you know, so I could take this off of here. There we go, and I could just use the built-in LFOs, which is cool. I'm not a fan. When I come to write the tunes, I want everything to be ready. I don't want to have to adjust LFOs particularly, you know. I'm not doing the sound design at that point. The sound design's all done now, before outside of the tune, you know. And this is where I make my libraries. So we've got that, and then we can now time it up to the tempo. So let's go 1/4s, and then we can now adjust, start giving some modulation amount to that filter frequency. Which is cool. So the only reason I like to use, I mean, they've both got pros and cons, but the only reason I like to use the LFO separately outside of the sampler is that you can then, when you come to here, when you come to the filter page, you can see the LFO happening. I've got no indication there that there's an LFO going on at all, apart from the sound of it, which is cool. That's fine. But when you assign the external LFO to the filter, you can actually see everything moving real time. The only downside to that for me is that I can't then re-trigger that LFO. So with the built-in sampler one, I've got a re-trigger option. You know, I can. So every time I press a key, it's exactly the same. It's a lovely hit. So I've got the re-trigger function, which is a handy function, which isn't part of the external LFO. But 6 of one, half a dozen of another, you know. So anyway, I hope that was insightful and helpful. Go down, hit that like button if you liked it. Hit the dislike if you disliked it. It's all interaction, and I'm grateful for it all. hit the subscribe button, because that only helps. And also, when I was looking through the analytics, this is all new to me, but when I was looking through the analytics, I noticed that 75% of people that are watching the videos, they're not subscribed, you know, which is fine, and you do your thing, you know, but it's free. You haven't got to pay anything to subscribe, and it really helps me out, you know. It enables me to make more videos and carry on going with this. So without further ado, lots of love, much love, and I'll catch you.